Hey, welcome to another episode of Dave's Imaginations. Today, we're going to create a button in a spreadsheet that when you click it, you will get a custom backstory for your NPC or character. No special software. I'm going to use Excel, but I'm going to show you how to do it in Google Sheets, and we're going to get to it right after this. Stay with me. So I recently found this document, this random Edgelord backstory table. It was posted in Facebook. Then with a quick and easy search, I found it on Reddit, and so I downloaded it. And in this document, it's got 4 parts to a sentence that put together a sentence for a background of an NPC or a character, and they call it EDGY, and it is. But I really liked it, and it demonstrates. I thought I'd use this document to demonstrate how to put a list into Excel and then create a button that you could click that would randomly select item from the list and from the four parts of the sentence, and randomly select those parts of the sentence and then concatenate those so that you can press the button and you can get different outputs, randomly created sentences for that Edgelord backstory table. So to do this, I'm going to go through how you download the document, and then you convert the image to a text, and then you input text to the spreadsheet and add the index and random selection function, then the concatenation function. And then I go through how to create the button to automate that recalculation. And then finally, as promised, I show you how to do it in Google Sheets as well, because most of the video will be me going through it in Excel. And I know that everyone has Excel, but Google Sheets, everyone can get Google Sheets. They're totally free, and this still works in Google Sheets. So let's go to Google and put in just random Edgelord backstory. You'll find that the original I found anyway was in Reddit. And so I clicked on the link, I opened Reddit, I opened up the image, and I just saved as to a spot I knew where I could get it later. And now that you have the image, we need to convert that image into text. So I use this Webp to text converter. Simply download the file, and it does the work for you. It downloads a text version of that file that you can copy and paste into an Excel document or your spreadsheet. Now, full disclosure here that when I did it, the conversion is not perfect, and so there was a lot of cleanup. So I let that be up to you. If you choose, you might just want to type it in. However, after I went through all that pain, I did find that in the Webp document, I was able to simply do a copy and paste, and that was probably the best way to do it. Just simply go into the document and highlight everything, do a Control-C or Command-C to do your copy, and then paste it in there. And that worked pretty darn good. I wish I would have figured that out earlier. But then you modify your text in a way that into columns. If you follow my columns, then you'll get them, be able to do the functions just exactly as I show you. I'll talk you through it. So here I have the data in the columns. Now, as you create the columns, you might notice a few things that in the document they have the same entry for multiple. They'll give you a range of numbers. So if you roll like a 1 through 3 on the edgy antagonist, you would get an evil wizard, right? So you need to have that. I created a list of 1 through 100, and I have that evil wizard in 1, 2, and 3. And so for each entry, I have that entry repeated for each die roll that it could possibly be. And then that makes up my list of 100. And that's very important for when you do the indexing. All right, now we get to the fun part. Now we add the random or the index and the random function. So here is the function. So it's index, and then you give the column the beginning where the list begins and where the list ends. So on my spreadsheet, the list began at B8 and ended at B107. Then you put the RANDBETWEEN function and you give 1, comma, and then total number of records in the list. So in our case, it's 100. Then you simply paste them over to the other columns. All right, so there we can see that we get our selections from each of the lists. And when you recalculate those, it gives you a nice sentence. So in this case, a Taras slaughtered my confidence. And now I trust no one. I imagine a Taras would slaughter my confidence, or slaughter anyone's confidence. All right, so we have those nice lists, but the values are at the bottom of a list, and I would prefer to see those values at the top of the list. So, I would prefer that those items be together. You could stop right here, but I like to move them to the top of the screen, and I like to automate the recalculation. So the standard functionality of recalculation is you go to at the very top of the screen. If you go up to the formulas, you can then find on the right hand side the Calculate Now button. You click on that, and that's when you can calculate through or recalculate the random selections from the list. So here I'm going to add a concatenation function to bring those 4 portions together. And so in the concatenation, you will find that you put the field of each of the columns, but you also need to put a parentheses, space, parentheses to insert a space to make it a nice even flowing sentence. And that's what I do here. Now with that in there, you still have to click that Calculate Now button to get a new value. And I think it'd be easier if we just had a button there that you could click instead of going through your menu items to find that Calculate Now button, and which is a pretty easy macro to write. So here I'm going to go into Insert and Shapes, and I'm going to pick a shape that I like. Here I pick a circle. I draw it in there, the shape, the size I want. I like to keep it pretty even width and height, make it pretty circular, and then position it where you want, and then highlight the image, and you can insert your macro. But I'm going to show you how to do that macro here in a second. To record a macro, you go into Tools, you select Macro, and you click on Record Macro. And now the screen, you give it a name and a description. And a hotkey if you wanted to. I didn't. When you click OK, the Microsoft is now wanting to learn that macro, and it's going to record any click or keystroke you do. And so from here, I go up to the formulas and I click the Calculate Now, and then I go back to the tools and I go to macros, and then I stop recording. And it's that simple. So now we recorded a macro called Recalculate that simply finds the Recalculate Now button and clicks it. And now we can assign that macro to the shape. So right clicking on the shape and then going down to Assign Macro, you select the macro you want and then click OK. And now you are able to click that macro and it recalculates the sheet. And here I just save my spreadsheet. It did give me this pop-up. So this says, hey, you're using some sort of macro in your spreadsheet. And here I just clicked yes, and it worked for me. So I clicked yes to save the spreadsheet, and now I am able to click that button and get my random Edgelord backstory, a random backstory for a character or NPC. All right, so let's go ahead and see if we can do this in a Google Sheet. So similar type of thing, you open a new sheet and you put in your data, right? Move it around, and I copied from my Excel, but again, you could have started from scratch here. But my functions, the same functions that worked in Excel, well, almost. All right, I was able to put the same function for the index and the random selection. That worked with no problem. But when I came to the concat, it didn't quite work. So I had to write a new concatenation. I had to nest my concatenation, and it looked like this. Now in Google Sheets, they didn't have the fancy macros and the fancy buttons. To get it to recalculate, I simply did a copy and paste in my concatenation. Every time I clicked the paste, it would give me a new entry. That's one way to do it. Another way to do it was just simply refresh the website, the web page. And that also, it was a little bit more clumsy as it recalculated a couple times before it settled on value, but it worked. All right, so every time you clicked refresh, it would end up with a new selections or new selections from the tables, from the list to give you the spread, to give you the result. So yeah, the major difference here then for the Google Sheet is twofold. The concat statement needed to be different, and I didn't insert a button to do it. But that was pretty much it. Couple final thoughts. I use this list, the random Edgelord backstory table. You could use any list. You could use list. It could be any list. You can just adjust you put your list in and you adjust the 100 in that random formula, and it'll pick a random entry from the list above, and this would work for any list. And then the concat is just concatenating any fields together, so you could really put any list you want in there. And as I said, if you look closely in the list I use, you can see that I modified some of the results. I didn't care for some of the results, so I just put my own in there, and you could do that as well. So that was the first thought. Next, I got this document from Reddit, from the Redditor DungeonMasterminds, and I did a little digging, and I found that that DungeonMasterminds has a Twitter handle @DungeonMasterminds. I'll put it down in the doobly-doo down below, along with all the formulas I use, and I'll put a link to that Reddit article as well. And I hope you enjoyed this. And you'll find it useful. Create your own list. What list might you put? Put down in the comments, if you don't mind, what list you might create, what list you might automate. Just click a button. I use this list. If you look at any of my live videos, you'll see that I don't use a Dungeon Master screen. I use a laptop. With the laptop up, and I'm going between D&D Beyond and my spreadsheet. And when I have my spreadsheet, that's where I keep my turn order and maybe some monster stats if I need it. And also I have a page full, many tabs full of random tables I can use. So that's how I use it. How might you use it? Put that down in the comments if you don't mind. Also, before you check out, if you don't mind, click that like button and subscribe if you haven't. I'd appreciate it. And I appreciate you watching the video. And until next time, take care.